Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about two new big ideas that really shaped the way the American colonies developed, especially in the early 1700s. Here are your video goals. The first big idea that we're going to look at is the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment is an intellectual movement that started in Europe around 1680, and it quickly spread to America. The main idea of the Enlightenment was that people should use reason and science to change the world for the better. And Enlightenment thinkers were especially concerned with the question of how should a government work? What is the best kind of government? And this is an idea that a lot of people spent a lot of time thinking about. And one guy, maybe the most important figure to come out of the Enlightenment, was this guy named John Locke. And John Locke had a couple really powerful ideas that caught on and spread all around Europe, and eventually even spread to the United States, and would have a big impact there. And so the three big ideas that Locke is remembered for are that people have natural rights to life, liberty, and property. That is, the government can never take away your life, your freedom, or your stuff. And so, kind of building on this idea, John Locke came up with the idea of the social contract. And basically what he said is that government is based on an agreement. That basically the people agree to listen to the government only because the government promises to protect their natural rights. So if you think about what the government does, a big part of it is that the government makes rules so that other people can't deprive you of your life, liberty, or property. But if a government starts to be bad and starts to take away your natural rights, then Locke says, in his third major point, that people are allowed to attack and overthrow a government if the government does a bad job of protecting people's natural rights. So all three of these big ideas, natural rights, the social contract, and the idea of rebellion, all become very important in American history. And basically these ideas are going to help to lead the American colonists to the idea of being independent from Great Britain. Basically, as the ideas of Locke catch on, a lot of people in the Americas start to ask, why do you get to be in charge? Why should we listen to you when you're all the way over there? So let's look a little bit more at the Enlightenment in America. During the 1700s, the idea of the Enlightenment became very popular among wealthy and educated colonists. Poorer people, or people who couldn't read, didn't really pay much attention to these ideas. But if you were rich, if you were the type of person that read books, you were probably reading books that had Enlightenment ideas in them. And because these ideas eventually began to influence the way people think about their lives and their government and all sorts of stuff. And one guy in the Americas who becomes a major Enlightenment figure is Benjamin Franklin. He basically embodies and represents Enlightenment ideas in America. And he does a bunch of different things that all kind of show his commitment to Enlightenment ideas. He helps to advance science and learning by founding libraries and a university. The University of Pennsylvania was founded by Benjamin Franklin. He conducted experiments to understand the nature of electricity and other stuff as well. And that's where the famous story of the kite in the thunderstorm comes from. And last of all, he used science to invent new important tools. So he invented the lightning rod, bifocal glasses, and a more efficient wood-burning stove. That was really important back then because that was how you heated your house. And so Franklin becomes very important and famous all throughout the American colonies and also back in Europe as basically America's Enlightenment man. And he's going to go on to be a really important figure later during the American War for Independence. The other big idea in the Americas, or in the American colonies during the 1700s, was the Great Awakening. And the Great Awakening was a religious movement, and specifically it was a sort of religious revival movement during the 1730s and 1740s. Basically, people were looking at religion in America around that time and thinking that it was kind of on the wrong path. So a bunch of preachers started going around and preaching a sort of new version of Christianity. And this new version of Christianity was different in a couple of ways. It was kind of more emotional and more exciting and more passionate than old-fashioned Christianity. There was more of a focus on faith in God and Jesus, and on living a moral life, and on feeling connected to God. And there was less of a focus on sort of like boring ceremonies and on little tiny differences between different types of Christianity. The real thing was a personal feeling, and they wanted to inspire a personal feeling of being connected to God. And this movement became very popular and spread all throughout the American colonies and had a really big effect on the colonies. One big effect was that there was greater religious diversity and more religious toleration. Basically, there were so many different types of Christianity in the Americas at this point that there was it would have been really hard to insist on only talking to or only getting along with one kind of Christianity. So basically, everybody accepts all kinds of Christianity as being basically cool and okay. And one thing you see is the growth of the Methodist and the Baptist churches, which are two of the biggest churches in the United States today. Another thing you see is a growth of American patriotism. Basically what happens here is that as the Great Awakening spreads and these new ideas about Christianity spread, all the different American colonies now have something in common. They all have these ideas about Christianity. And another thing that happens is that these ideas of the Great Awakening don't really catch on in England. So now there's kind of a divide between America, which holds on to these Great Awakening ideas, and England that doesn't hold on to these ideas. And so now the American colonists can identify more with each other than they can with Great Britain. And this also is going to help to nudge the United States a little bit closer to breaking away from Great Britain in the 1770s. All right, here are your goals. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys tomorrow.